You're about to discover one of the strangest contradictions in human psychology. The personality type built to lead, yet constantly resisting the spotlight. INFJs have the vision, the intuition, the emotional intelligence, the strategy, everything leadership books rave about. But they're also the first to quietly step back when everyone expects them to step up. In this video, we're going in-depth into the hidden reasons why the INFJ is both a natural leader and a reluctant one. And by the end, you'll understand why when an INFJ finally does choose to lead, everything changes. Let's get into it. If you want to truly understand yourself and unlock your full potential as an INFJ, check out the INFJ Purpose Compass today. The link is in the description of this video. INFJs possess a rare combination of intuition, empathy, and long-range vision that makes their leadership unusually effective. They are able to see patterns long before others notice them. Their minds naturally gravitate toward underlying causes rather than surface-level problems. This gives them a strategic clarity most leaders lack, allowing them to anticipate consequences, predict outcomes, and build systems that serve the long-term health of a group rather than the immediate ego of the moment. Because they care deeply about people, their leadership is principled and human-centered. They do not lead to dominate. They lead to elevate. People feel understood in their presence, and this emotional safety creates loyalty that can't be manufactured or forced. The INFJ's ability to both inspire and stabilize makes them uniquely capable of guiding others through periods of uncertainty and crisis. Yet the very strengths that make INFJs exceptional leaders also make leadership emotionally exhausting for them. Their intuition picks up every conflict, tension, and hidden agenda in a room. And while this makes them effective at managing people, it also overwhelms them. Leading requires being constantly visible, constantly evaluated, and constantly available. Three things that feel unnatural to INFJs, whose inner world is private, intense, and deeply personal. They crave depth over noise and alignment over attention. The spotlight feels like exposure, not validation, and the weight of others' expectations often feels suffocating. INFJs refuse leadership when they sense that taking charge will force them to betray their authenticity. They understand that true leadership is not just holding a title, it is embodying a moral standard. Because their own internal compass is so strong, they feel immense pressure to live up to it. If they sense they are not ready or do not have the proper environment to lead with integrity, they would rather step back than compromise their principles. This self-denial confuses others, but makes perfect sense to the INFJ psyche, which values righteousness over recognition. Another reason INFJs avoid leadership is their aversion to conflict. Great leaders must make decisions that disappoint some people, and while INFJs can absolutely make hard decisions, the emotional cost is higher for them than for most. They feel the weight of every perspective. They understand every side of the story. Their empathy makes them reluctant to enforce rules or assert authority because they cannot disconnect from how others feel in the process. They are not afraid of responsibility, but they are afraid of hurting people, even when it is necessary. This reluctance causes them to wait for leadership roles until they are sure they can handle the emotional consequences without compromising their mental health. INFJs also struggle with the imposter syndrome created by their perfectionist nature. They constantly see what could go wrong, what could be improved, and how things could be done better. Their vision stretches so far ahead that the imperfect reality of their current skills or circumstances makes them feel unworthy of leading until everything is fully prepared. Meanwhile, other personality types leap into leadership with half the self-awareness and a fraction of the competence. INFJs don't lead because they know the magnitude of what good leadership truly requires, and they would rather delay than deliver anything less than excellence. Deep down, INFJs lead best from behind the scenes. They inspire without demanding credit. They guide through intuition rather than command. They shape culture subtly, often becoming the invisible force that moves a team, a relationship, or a community in the right direction. Their leadership is quiet, almost spiritual, felt rather than announced. Many INFJs spend years thinking they are not leaders, only to realize later that people have been following them all along, simply because their presence is grounding and their insight is life-changing. INFJs refuse leadership when it feels ego-driven, performative, or shallow. They are not interested in power for power's sake. They want purpose, meaning, and transformation. If a leadership role does not allow them to serve a deeper mission, connect authentically, or improve people's lives, they will walk away without hesitation. They lead only when the role aligns with their internal values and allows them to be themselves without distortion. And perhaps the most profound reason INFJs avoid leadership is that they are protectors of their inner world. Their creativity, intuition, and emotional sensitivity are their greatest gifts, but these gifts require solitude, reflection, and freedom. Leadership often demands constant interaction, political maneuvering, and compromise, things that drain INFJs faster than they drain most. To protect their inner fire, they withdraw, believing they can do more good from the shadows than from the throne. Yet when an INFJ finally chooses to lead, it is never accidental. It is because something important is at stake, something tied to their purpose. And when that happens, their leadership becomes extraordinary, empathetic, prophetic, principled, and transformative. They lead not because they want to, but because they feel called to. And that is why, despite their reluctance, INFJs often become some of the most impactful leaders the world has ever seen. INFJs also refuse leadership because they understand the emotional contract it creates. Once they step forward, people expect them to be the emotional anchor, the visionary guide, and the moral voice all at once. INFJs know better than anyone that leadership is not simply a role. It becomes a relationship, and relationships matter profoundly to them. They fear stepping into leadership before they are fully ready because they view it as a sacred responsibility. They don't want to take ownership of people's trust unless they can hold it with absolute integrity. This reverence for the emotional weight of leadership makes them hesitate in ways that more assertive types never consider. There is also the INFJ's unusual relationship with power itself. Unlike many personalities who seek power to gain influence or control, INFJs often perceive power as something dangerous, something that must be handled like fire. Their deep self-awareness makes them hyper-conscious of how easily power can corrupt, distort motives, or inflame ego. Because they understand the darker sides of human psychology, they are afraid of what leadership positions can bring out in people, including themselves. This makes them reluctant to step into authority unless they are absolutely certain their intentions are pure and their ego is disciplined. Their refusal is not fear of leadership. It is fear of becoming someone they would no longer respect. INFJs also crave environments that allow authenticity, depth, and emotional intelligence to thrive, and traditional leadership structures rarely provide that. Most leadership roles require political maneuvering, surface-level interactions, and navigating unspoken hierarchies. This feels like soul poison to an INFJ. They prefer influence that flows naturally from trust and respect, not from status or positional authority. When the leadership model around them feels artificial or manipulative, they withdraw. Not because they lack ability, but because they refuse to function in systems that force them to operate against their nature. Another reason INFJs avoid leadership is their unique relationship with their vision. Their insights often form years before others are ready to understand them. This creates an uncomfortable gap where they can see what must be done, but lack the external support or cultural readiness to implement it. Instead of forcing their ideas prematurely, INFJs wait. They observe. They refine. They quietly guide the minds of those around them until the environment is ready. Their leadership is often delayed not by insecurity, but by strategic timing. INFJs do not rush visions. They incubate them until the world catches up. INFJs also carry an enormous internal pressure to honor their calling. They know they were designed for impact, and that awareness can feel terrifying. Leading means stepping into the fullness of who they are, and that level of visibility exposes them in ways they cannot hide from. Their depth, their ideals, their intuition, everything becomes public. INFJs are used to being misunderstood, and leadership multiplies that misunderstanding on a grand scale. They avoid leadership because they fear their intentions will be twisted, their words misinterpreted, and their deeply held values reduced to stereotypes by those who cannot grasp their complexity. Another unspoken reason INFJs avoid leadership is emotional overstimulation. Their empathy, intuition, and perceptiveness make them absorb the emotional atmosphere of any room like a sponge. When you place someone with that level of sensitivity at the center of a group, they feel every fear, every frustration, every unspoken conflict. It is not simply pressure. It is psychic noise. An INFJ leader must navigate both the responsibilities of leading and the emotional burden of carrying everyone's subconscious anxieties. Most people will never know this happens, but INFJs feel intensely. Their refusal to lead is often a self-protective measure to prevent emotional burnout. INFJs also struggle with leadership because they live in a paradox between humility and destiny. They instinctively downplay their talents, yet deep inside they know they are capable of extraordinary things. This inner tension makes them extremely cautious about stepping forward too soon. They fear being seen as arrogant. They fear appearing controlling. They fear overshadowing others. So instead of claiming leadership, they often empower others to lead, gently guiding them from the background without taking credit. This creates a strange phenomenon. INFJs frequently build leaders while refusing to be the leader themselves. Another overlooked reason is that INFJs are long-term thinkers in a short-term world. They see the future implications of decisions that most leaders ignore. When they observe organizations built on short-term metrics, superficial goals, or temporary gains, they lose interest in leading those systems. INFJs only want to lead when they can create sustainable change, not quick wins. They refuse roles where they are expected to operate reactively instead of architecturally. Their leadership shines in environments that value vision, but wilts in environments that prioritize speed over strategy. INFJs also know that their leadership disrupts the status quo. Their insights destabilize stagnant systems. Their honesty exposes hidden dysfunctions. Their vision challenges comfortable mediocrity. Every INFJ leader eventually becomes a catalyst, and catalysts are rarely welcomed with open arms. The resistance they face, political, social, emotional, can be draining. Many INFJs choose the influence of the outsider rather than the confrontations of the insider, because real leadership for INFJs means transformation, and transformation always threatens those who benefit from the old way. INFJs refuse leadership because they understand the cost of it better than anyone. Leadership requires sacrifice of privacy, of emotional peace, of creative freedom. INFJs live rich inner lives, and leadership demands constant outward engagement. To lead well, they must give up some of what nurtures their soul: solitude, introspection, and the quiet space where their intuition blooms. They hesitate because they know every yes to leadership is also a no to something deeply precious within them. INFJs also refuse leadership because they are painfully aware of how deeply their decisions ripple into the lives of others. And this awareness makes them move slowly, cautiously, and with almost spiritual seriousness toward any role of authority. While many people step into leadership for validation or achievement, INFJs hesitate because they know that leadership permanently alters the emotional ecosystem of a group, and once they step into that role, they will be expected to hold space for everyone else's fears, hopes, and contradictions. They understand that people project onto leaders, project their insecurities, their unmet needs, their unresolved conflicts, and INFJs absorb those projections intensely. This makes leadership feel less like a position and more like an energetic responsibility, one that can drain their inner world if taken prematurely. So they wait, watching quietly from the margins until the moment their involvement becomes less about ambition and more about necessity, until stepping forward is no longer a choice, but a calling.